Here are 10 beginner photography mistakes that I wish I knew when I first started photography. For those that don't know me, my name is Noe, and today I want to go over 10 beginner photography mistakes that I wish I knew when I first started. And I know what you're going to say, there's already so many videos out there on this topic, especially the bigger YouTubers, but there's no reason why I can't put in my 2 cents. The first thing I want to touch on is social media. I started photography back in 2012, and I did start an Instagram account, but I didn't really start taking it seriously till maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you know? And I feel as though if I had started social media earlier, I would have had many more opportunities in jobs, maybe selling prints, my services. And I think many photographers have this romanticized idea, such as someday someone's just going to discover them and they're going to make it big, you know? And that's just not the way it works. The reality is you have to put yourself out there. So I know there's many other YouTubers out there who say you don't need to do social media because they'd rather be working and making money and through connections than just social media. But there's no reason why they have to be mutually exclusive. I mean, you can be out there doing the work, making a good name for yourself with clients, getting your name out word to word, but you can also be tapping into this resource that is social media like Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Now, don't expect fame and glory from social media. It's a resource. It's a resource to meet other photographers and other like-minded individuals and occasionally get an extra little gig here and there. So don't limit yourself. Please start using social media as soon as you watch this video. And this brings me to point number 2, which is to value your work, not only with self-respect, but also through monetization. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and try to sell your presets or your affiliate links like here on YouTube, but your work is worth something. You know, you can go out there and try and sell some prints, that's fine. Now, I've been a photographer since 2012. It is now 2019 when I'm making this video, and I didn't start selling prints or charging much for my services until like 3 years ago. Before that, it was mostly just shooting for friends, maybe family members or friends who had a wedding. They'd ask me to like help out, and I can't help but think about how much money I could have made in those 5 years prior to this. Now, it wouldn't have been too much, but even if I had sold a few prints here or there, or if I got paid for shooting a few weddings, it would have done something to help me out. It would have added up over time. Don't be afraid to put your photos out there on a print store. Just because you're a beginner doesn't mean your photo is worth any less than any other photographer's work out there. You may not be Steve McCurry, but who knows, maybe your photo has some sort of sentimental value to someone and they just want to buy it. Some people feel that it's wrong to try and make money with art, but it's not just about that. This is your work. You're putting yourself out there, especially like landscape photographers. Every time you wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to take a picture that you like, it's not a bad thing to make a little bit of money off of that if someone wants to buy a print, you know. Now, personally, I have affiliate links and I do have prints, but I don't go around trying to push it in people's face. That's just there in case someone wants to buy, you know. So please have some self-respect for yourself, for your work. Don't sell yourself off cheap. If some magazine comes and they want to pay you an exposure bucks, yeah, please be considerate of yourself and your work. Point number 3, and I hope this doesn't stir up some controversy, but the fact of the matter is you don't have to shoot in manual all the time. Now, I don't want to point any fingers, but it seems to me that here in the photography community, a lot of people feel that if you don't shoot manual, you're not a real photographer. It's good to know how to shoot manual. I think this is very important for a photographer to know when to shoot manual. It's not ideal to be shooting manual all the time. Now, this is a mistake that I think many beginner photographers fall into, just like I did. Like, they have this really romanticized idea of what photography is, and that if you don't shoot manual, somehow you're not a real photographer. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. And I think for the first few years, I did shoot only in manual, and it's not until I started shooting streets that I actually started using aperture priority and worrying more about getting the picture than getting the settings exactly how they should be. The fact of the matter is, if you shoot manual all the time, there's going to be missed opportunities, missed shots that you could have gotten if only you hadn't let God this pride get in the way. I'm not saying don't learn to shoot manual. I'm just saying you don't always have to be shooting in manual. Like, I shoot aperture priority, but sometimes when the camera can't get the lighting the way I want it, then I switch to manual and I get the shot the way I want it. This brings me to my next point, and a lot of photographers fall into this whole, you have to capture the moment. It's a like very poetic way of thinking. Like, you wait, you take the picture at the right moment, and that's it. But I'm here to tell you, even the pros didn't feel that way. Like, if you look at the contact sheets of the old photographers, they really worked the scene. I mean, they would take all kinds of angles, they would take all kinds of focal lengths, they would move closer, further away from the subject, they would shoot at different times. I'm not trying to say don't try and capture the picture at just the right moment. You should be striving for that. But don't just take one picture of that and then move on. So this is especially true if you're traveling. Like if you go to Hong Kong and you go to like say Victoria Peak, you're not just gonna take one picture, I captured the moment, and then you leave. Later you go into like Instagram or something and you realize that your horizons are off, or maybe there's a better angle you could have taken it, maybe you could have done it in portrait mode. So do yourself a favor, work the scene, try all kinds of combinations. Move further, move backwards, side, do it from bird's eye view, worm's eye view, switch lenses, come at a different time. You don't have to take the picture only one time and move on. Which brings me to point number 5. That is all about lenses. When I first started photography, I felt under the impression that you needed the best lenses to take photos. When my friends started talking about sharpness and color fidelity, corners and chromatic aberration, I admit I had no idea what the heck they were talking about. And God bless my friends. I mean, I love my friends, but they got me hooked on the L lens craze, you know, and that's a lot of money. And I remember saving so much money to get my first L lens, and I was so happy. But now that I've matured as a photographer, kind of look back and I realized I spent a lot of money on gear when I wasn't even professional at the time. Now these days, I usually just buy film lenses. The thing is, most people who look at my photos, they don't realize if I shot with my phone or if I shot with a 1967 film lens, you know? So I just look back and I think I spent so much money on lenses when I could have spent that money going on trips and experiences and just shooting a lot of pictures with old film lenses. And I think if I could go back in time, one of the things I would tell myself is buy more film lenses instead. For example, right now, my favorite lens to shoot with is a Pentax Super Takumar 50mm 1.4. That lens only cost me like $70. In comparison, I have a 2224mm 1.4 Canon L lens sitting in my locker. And the only times that I use my L lenses are when I have to go shoot indoors. Now, if you're an amateur, I think film lenses are great for you. But if you're a professional and you're watching this video, I understand you need the latest and greatest. But this is for people who are just starting out photography. So please don't mind me. I think this serves as a great transition into number 6. Number 6, don't place so much emphasis on gear and on settings. Now, as I matured in my photography journey, as so many people like to say, I realized that gear really isn't all that. In fact, some of my most famous, well, not that famous, some of my best pictures were actually shot on a phone. And if I mentioned this before, many of the people that watch my pictures, they don't care about the little bit of vignetting. They don't care about the sharpness. They don't care if I didn't freeze the moment so crisply. They just care about the picture itself. They just care about the image that I make and how it makes them feel. I feel as though photographers are the only ones who are pixel peepers. Especially on YouTube, I see it's very rampant. Every time a new camera comes out, people are just in there pixel peeping and breaking down the latest gear, you know? And it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad that this is the kinds of videos that get ranked the most. And I feel as it's doing a disservice to the photography community, especially for beginners, because what this doing is don't people who are interested in photography, hey, you can't take a good picture unless you got the latest and greatest gear. And one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel is to tell people you don't need the latest and greatest gear. So please don't put too much emphasis on gear. Please don't be a pixel peeper. Just focus on photography itself. This brings me to point number 7. Stop fantasizing about shooting and actually go out there and shoot. Seriously, why are you still watching this video? If I were you, I'd go out there and take pictures instead. No, I'm just kidding. Please stay and finish this video. It really helps me out. No, but seriously, stop wishing you can go out there and take pictures like Elijah Locardi or making videos like Peter McKinnon. How about you go out there and you do it instead? Or at least try. Like, please stop making excuses for yourself. Please stop whining, I don't have the latest, greatest gear. I can't go out there and do it like that. You need to go out there and shoot. Sadly, I think a lot of photographers are more like keyboard photographers. They spend their time pixel peeping on YouTube comments and Reddit, but none of them actually go out and shoot, you know? So go out there and be a creator. Don't just stand behind a computer looking at specs of gear. Now, if I could go back and pinpoint the exact time when my photography completely changed, it would be about point number 8. Learn to use Lightroom. Early on when I started photography, I bought into this whole romanticized idea about photography. Editing is cheating. If you don't get it right in camera, it's wrong. You have to wait for the exact moment and take the picture. To be honest, I look back at that time and I think I was a real dupe. Like, that was photography for someone else. It was not photography for myself. It's not until I started using Adobe Lightroom and editing and playing around with my pictures that I actually unleashed my creativity, or like unleashed my potential. I remember when I first opened up Lightroom, when I first decided to start learning it, and I thought to myself, this looks really, really complicated. But actually, within 10 minutes, I already had down all the concepts of Lightroom. I mean, not all the concepts, just the main ones. I guess I should bundle learning Lightroom with shooting RAW, but I do plan to make an updated version of this later on. So I feel as though once I started using Adobe Lightroom, it kind of unleashed my creativity. Like my potential just shot up through the roof. And I didn't know that I could salvage my pictures. You know, I made so many mistakes shooting, and I could actually go back and fix these pictures in post. And so many pros actually do this, and I always thought in my head, I always had this idea that professionals didn't edit. They just used filters and stuff in front of the lens, and they had nice expensive glass, and that was going to make a nice picture. But actually, pretty much everyone edits a picture, that's the truth. Now, I'm not telling you to place so much emphasis on editing, because all the editing in the world is not going to save a bad picture, but I'm saying editing with Adobe Lightroom or On1, Skylum, these are ways to enhance your photos. And especially if you're like a more artistic person, it can be a tool to unleash the vision that you want for the photo. So don't limit yourself, learn Adobe Lightroom today. Don't worry, I won't try to sell you an affiliate link or anything like that. You can use whatever you want. I know there's free software out there, but pretty much all the photo editing softwares out there, they all more or less accomplish the same thing. I mean, they all have like the same settings. So go out there, find the editing software of your choice, free or not, and start using it. And this brings me to number 9, which I must say is more of a pet peeve than anything. If I could go back, I would tell myself, stop romanticizing photography. Now, every video I ever watched, every person I ever talked to, every book I ever read, they all emphasize the same things. Everything should be done in camera or it's wrong. Everything has to be tick sharp. All the photos must be crisp. Is there some semblance of motion blur? The picture is terrible. The truth of the matter is, and I mentioned this before, but people don't care. And usually other photographers are not trying to buy your photos or your book or your presets because they already know how to do these things themselves. The people out there who care about your art are your friends, your neighbors, that person who took a trip to the same city you did. These are the people that are going to buy your stuff, and they're not there looking, oh, there's a little bit of motion blur in that man's foot in the corner of the frame. Oh, the corners aren't right. It looks like there's a little bit of lens distortion. The lines are all wrong. I think this topic ties in on the idea that you're basically placing limitations on yourself and your photography. Why would you do that? Why are you trying to place all these rules on yourself? Now, I'm gonna tell you a story, and I hope this guy's not watching this, but a few weeks ago, actually a few months ago, I made a video about shooting film photography at night, and I was using the Cinestill 800 film. Now, if you guys are familiar with my kind of photography, I shoot a lot of neon noir. That means I'm shooting in places with little to no light, usually only one light source. And I had to use a tripod because I was doing exposures of less than a second. So this guy doesn't know anything about me, wrote down, you're doing that all wrong. That's not how you're supposed to use that film. You're supposed to go out there and shoot in well-lit areas. Don't use a tripod, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just saying, this poor guy, I was just thinking this to myself, like, poor guy, he's putting all these rules on himself of what he can, he can't do, and he doesn't even consider my own circumstances. Like, I don't really care that that's the way you're supposed to use Cinestill. I'm using Cinestill because, first of all, 800 is pretty good for a film for shooting in low light, and since my areas are like super dark, I'm going to be using a tripod because I need to. It doesn't change the fact of how I felt about him, that I actually felt pretty bad that he had this whole idea that you can only do things this way and not another way. Now, when it comes to photography, I say you should learn when and when not to use the rules. You know, like, it's kind of cliche to say, but learn the rules and then break them all. I feel as though if I followed the rules that everyone else tried to place on me, then my pictures would be just like them. I wouldn't even stand out. This is up to yourself, but stop trying to limit yourself what you can and can't do. And that's probably like the most important thing I have to tell you guys is stop placing all these rules on yourself, you know? I know there's sometimes people who try to help you, but sometimes they're actually holding you back. And I know that might be some little kind of rude, but it's something to keep in mind. Next time you're taking a photo and you think to yourself that you can't do it for so-and-so reason, just try and remember what I'm telling you guys. Don't place any rules on yourself. This brings me to number 10, and this ties in very well with what I just said. but you need to learn to take feedback from other people, but at the same time, you need to know when not to listen to others. So I think it's a real fine line, and it's very hard sometimes. You really want to be careful with this one because you don't want to let your pride get in the way, but there are times when you should listen to others and what they're telling you, and they're telling you, giving you their advice and their opinion. And then there's other times where you just have to be yourself. Like, the thing is, people don't understand your circumstances. I'm not trying to tell you you're a special flower or anything, but you need to know that you're doing something and the reasons why you're doing it. And sometimes others won't understand that, and that's fine. So this is actually something that you just have to reserve judgment for yourself. I think this is something people just have to work on. Learn when to listen to others and learn when not to. And actually, I'm gonna give you guys a bonus because if the title was correct, it would have been 11 things. But actually, I just want to say 10 is a much more nicer number than 11. But I want to tell you guys to save all your pictures. Not gonna say don't delete all of them, but if you need space, delete some of them. But when I first started, I used to delete everything I didn't like. And looking back, I actually had many good pictures. But like I said, at the time, I didn't really value my own work. And some of these pictures were actually from travels like Taiwan or the Philippines or Vietnam. These are places that I paid a lot of money to go to, you know. And if I want to get those pictures back, well, they'll never be quite the same. But I would have to spend money to go back there again. So heed my tips, save all your photos. And it's time to start investing in some external space for your computer. But anyways, these are 10 things I wish I knew as a photographer when I was first starting, and I hope you guys will agree with some of them. I am not the greatest person when it comes to explaining things or telling people my mind. That's why I'm a photographer. Like, I express myself through pictures, and I try not to screw up when I'm talking, you know. But please let me know if you guys like this video, and if you don't like this video, go ahead and comment too. That's fine too, you know. Give it a thumbs up or not, give it down. It's up to you guys. But if you did like this video, please be sure to subscribe. Give me a like, because you guys know likes are like currency to photographers here on YouTube. It really helps us out. But anyways, I'll see you guys around.